make it opening statement. Open up for questions.
All ready? Got Florida and Gainesville at noon. A great opportunity for our football team on the road. Got a lot of respect for Dan and his staff, and the job Dan did at Mississippi State, and then being back at Florida, and the job he and his staff are doing this year. And I know a lot of his staff members, and they do a really good job. A little uncertainty at the quarterback position, but Felipe Franks can make all the throws. He's got tremendous arm talent, and has shown flashes this year of being a very effective quarterback. Kyle Trask has done a really nice job in the opportunities that he's had to go in there and perform offensively. Emory Jones is a young man that from Heard County in Georgia that's really talented. Played against Georgia a little bit, and certainly Kendarius Toney's a guy that played quarterback at Blount High School in Mobile and is playing receiver for him, and they've used in some sort of wildcat situation. So we'll be prepared for all situations, and as far as our guys are concerned with whatever they decide to do as far as the quarterback position. They're very big and explosive outside, and Swain and Jefferson and Grimes and Cleveland and Hammond are all guys that can run vertically. They're big guys that can go judge the ball down the field, finish on plays down the field. But the position that really strikes you is a running back position. Scarlett and P. Ryan and Pierce are all very similar backs, compact, big lower body, run through contact. Been very impressed with them. In their offensive line and the movement they get in the run game. So, Dan does a really good job offensively of keeping you off balance and giving you some different looks week to week, so we'll have to make some adjustments in the game. Defensively, the guys that jump out at you, Zaninga and Polite and C.C. Jefferson, are all fast twitch guys on the edge. Been very effective. They forced 18 turnovers. They're +6 as a football team this year, third in the SEC behind LSU and Alabama. So that tells you a lot of their wins are, you go back and look at it, it's a turnover margin. Taking care of the football offensively and getting it off people defensively. Todd Grantham, their coordinator, does a really good job, again, week to week, giving you some different things that you're going to have to be able to block you probably haven't seen on tape. But his guys are they're forcing turnovers and they're ball hawking the ball. Joseph's a very active linebacker, and they've got a really talented secondary. Two really good specialists as far as McPherson and Townsend, and really good team speed, and Swain and Tony are really good as returners. So we've got our work cut out for us there at noon in Gainesville. Injury report. Hit on Javon Charleston, Jam Williams are both having surgery this week. Nick Harvey and JT eBay will be out. And everybody practiced except for Bryson Allen, Rico, and Aaron, and I'll know more of them as the week goes. They're day-to-day at this time. They didn't practice today, but hope to get them back out there tomorrow and Thursday, and we'll see how it goes. At this time of the year, everybody's banged up. Everybody's got injuries. That's part of the deal. Man down, man up. And we'll open it up for any questions.
Will, looking at the secondary, is it the time where you maybe go to a guy like a Darius Rush or a Jonah Gibson and say, hey, be ready, and you're the emergency option, maybe even a Decarrion Joyner to say just throw him in there and get some bodies out there?
Jonathan will be prepared to go, and that's a possibility there. Obviously, Rashad Fenton gives us a lot of flexibility. Can play nickel, can go back and play safety if he needs to. He repped with me today, an individual, and we're going to have him mentally prepared to go in the game. Shi Smith is a guy that could go in at corner for us, given we need some snaps there. So we'll have a plan ready.
What are Bryson and Aaron's injuries?
Bryson's got an ankle, and Aaron's got a knee.
If neither one of those guys comes back, what sort of solutions do you have on the end?
Well, we've got Shamik's played really well. Big third down stop in the game Saturday. Obviously, Dennis Woolham can play at the end. Danny Fennell, Brad Johnson, Kier Thomas can play in. J.J. Mbari can play in.
In terms of Jam and Javon, you said they're having surgery this week. Just what is their timetable for return? Do you expect them to be back for spring ball?
Oh, I haven't gotten that far with that yet. Both, in both situations, I don't know. I expect both of them back. I just don't know when.
How much is Shi repped at defensive back, and what did you see out of him that made you look at that?
Well, I watched him in high school. He's a really good defensive back at Union, and got good coverage skills and really good ball skills down the field, ball judgment down the field. He's tough. He can tackle. He's on special teams for us. So we just met with him to mentally prepare him. It's not as much about repping. It's more about getting him to our sideline, and if we get into a jam, being able to communicate with him on the things he needs to do. He'll be fine.
Well, when you're prepping for two quarterbacks, going up against two quarterbacks, is it hard to sort of rep for a guy like Kyle Trask, who hasn't played a whole lot this year?
I don't know. I don't know that they change a lot depending on who the quarterback is. Obviously, Dan's going to play to their strengths and the things that they like in the throwing game and such. But I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference in contrast to those two guys and what they do.
Well, after winning back-to-back games for the first time this season, do you notice any kind of different spirit around your team?
No, I think our guys have been pretty steady in their approach each week and understanding the workman-like mentality on a Tuesday. Same for Wednesday and Thursday. That's the one thing these guys do is they go and they work, and I think their preparation has been very good this year to this point. Obviously, we're a little inconsistent with our play on Saturdays earlier in the fall, and hopefully we're getting better.
From a general standpoint, how much does quarterback uncertainty or unrest affect an entire football team?
I think probably, John, I would say every situation is probably different from a standpoint of whether it's inconsistent play or lack of production or whatever, or two really good players. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That there's so many different scenarios I think you can look at and how it affects a team, and how it affects the other offensive players and how it affects your defense and your special teams performers and those sort of things. So I think it would be hard to put it in one capsule and say this is what I think. I think that it's very difficult. I think, that situation can go in so many different levels as far as what is the controversy, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
How's Malik Young and Dennis Daly? If you
They practiced today. They look good, and Dennis moved around good, and Blake Camper got a little knee, and he's fine, and then Malik looked good. Yeah.
I was going to say, with Blake coming in and playing kind of an emergency spot last week, does that kind of up his reps a little bit on the offensive line?
Well, obviously, and I think that again, Sedarius Hutcherson can bump outside if need be. He would be the next guy to go play the tackle position. Chandler Farrell can go play center. Donnell can play guard, either guard position. Jordan Rhodes is another guy that we feel comfortable with. So we'll continue to rotate those guys, and then as we get closer to game day, narrow down exactly what we're going to do.
With Blake, what does it kind of say about the way he sort of reacted and responded to, losing a starting job, and then, at least the way he was talking about it earlier, kind of immediately put that aside, said for the good of the team, and kind of went from there?
Well, Blake's a great, consummate teammate and wants what's best for our football team. I think he obviously sees the ability that a guy like Dylan Wonnum has, and as he continued to mature, and nobody was probably more helpful to Dylan than Blake as far as helping him out and wanting him to be a successful player. But Blake's also a guy that's been here for a long time, and he understands this is a long season. And I told the team today, be ready when your number's called, and don't let your teammate down. And you get your opportunity to go play, be productive. I had 3 or 4 guys come to me last week and talk to me about playing time. When your number's called, be ready to play. Your number gets called, step up and play well.
Considering your situation at safety, have you at all been tempted to approach the carry-on about that,
No.
or are you committed to him as a quarterback only?
Committed as a quarterback.
Played 4 freshmen in the secondary. I think you said after the game that was the first time you've ever done that. Obviously, they wouldn't all be playing together if you hadn't had all these injuries. Can you just talk about how beneficial it is for that group to be playing together this early in their career moving forward?
Well, yeah, it's good. It's good as we move forward. May give me a couple more gray hairs. But those guys are all extremely bright. They work really hard. I think that look at JC in the year he's had and put together. It's been very impressive. Israel's a guy we've got a lot of confidence in. Jalen's been through a tough road. I don't think people realize the severity of the injury he had. He lost feeling of his arm, and that muscle was not firing. And we had the surgery, and he went about 8 to 10 months without really being able to lift. And it just really, to me, in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks, has gained the confidence back in that arm to be able to have the contact and some of the things that we ask him to do. He's been a very valuable contributor on special teams. RJ continues to improve each and every day. And again, their best football for all 4 is ahead of them. And that's the thing we've got to realize. And as we install and look at different things to make sure that we're not asking them to do too much, that we're not asking them to think. They need to be reacting on game day and playing fast, which I thought they did for the most part on Saturday. Continue to do a really good job of communicating to give themselves and their teammates an opportunity to get in a position to be successful.
You mentioned Florida's rushing attack. Just do they do anything different compared to teams that you've already faced in terms of like a Kentucky or a Georgia or a Texas A&M?
Well, I think we're calling each week that they do a really good job of game planning and giving you some different looks there. As you go through their run game, I put it on the board last night with our defensive staff. I mean, you look at by personnel grouping. There's a lot of runs. I mean, there's a large volume, and they're very successful. So, in my opinion, what that tells you is they do a really good job of game planning. They do a really good job of figuring out what's going to work in the run game because they've been successful running it.
Will a lot of man coverage in the fourth quarter against Ole Miss with the secondary depth concerns. Could you play man the whole game, or are you concerned maybe about tiring them out if they had to do that?
Well, if they run a deep ball, whether you're in zone or man, you're gonna get tired. So that's part of it. So we'll figure out what we need to do to give us the best chance.
Watching the Missouri-Florida game last week, is there anything that Jake can maybe mirror from what Drew was able to do against that secondary, especially without some of those Florida starters in the secondary?
Every week's a season. Every single week's a different deal, and we'll face a different Florida team than we saw on tape, and that's what message for our guys and understanding that, and obviously you prepare from the tape as you watch it. And you get a good idea schematically of where you feel like and how they're going to attack you. But every week's a season.
Through this season, what's kind of the growth you've seen from Rick Sandage, and how nice was it to see him kind of finally get that sack, so to make that impact?
A guy that it's really difficult, especially for bigger guys, because generally bigger guys in high school are able to out-muscle, out-girth smaller players, and they don't face guys as big as them week in, week out on the line of scrimmage or day in, day out in practice. So it starts, in my opinion, with big guys on either side of the ball, on offense or defense, is understanding every single day, packing your lunch and coming to practice and having to practice at a really, really high level. That's very difficult for those guys to adjust to. And I've seen Rick really mature and adjust as we've moved forward through training camp into the season and developing the right kind of practice habits every single day and learning to strain all the time, which is very difficult for big guys to do. And that's the marked improvement, and that's why his play on Saturday, because he's able to sustain and endure longer. He's gotten stronger, and that's been a huge part of it. He's gotten more flexibility in his lower body, which has tremendously helped him. And then obviously just the knowledge of what we do and how we do it, and from a fundamental and technique standpoint. So I think all those things combined, because he's a very eager young man to learn and to do it right. He's a pleaser, and he wants to please, and that's a very good quality for really good players.
Well, I'm sure you've been around groups where, when they get knocked back early, perhaps they don't respond with the way you want. What is it about this group that has been able to kind of block out the early disappointments and, especially the last month, respond in difficult situations?
Well, I think we have good leadership at the top of our team that have a mentality of a so what, now what mentality. We talk to our team about all the time, whether it's something you do really well or something you do very poorly, to move to the next play. And we talk in terms of winning downs, and that wins possessions, and that wins games. And so regardless of the circumstance or situation, just keep playing. And that's something you continue to sell in your organization. It's not something we just talk about one week or one game. It's every single day. And over a period of time, it becomes your culture.
Will, do you look at Mon Denson as your number one back for this Saturday?
Yeah, he and AJ. And, Tyson's going to be fine. We're going to cut back on the cast. And but all three of those guys are all number ones.
And with Mon, you mentioned how frustrating the hamstring has been. Has he ever been, frustrated these past couple of years with the injuries, his lack of carries? Has he ever expressed any of that to you?
I'm sure he has, but has not shown it one day. He's a great teammate. He's a guy that, like I said, you get opportunities, go produce, go play well. You'll get more opportunities. He's been a great teammate, and I'm glad that he's had the success he's had and the opportunities he's had, because he's had a lot of success running the football for us. You look at last year and then into this year when he's been healthy, and that's been the biggest issue right now, just his health.
How is this trip back to the Swamp different both for your team and for you personally than the last time you went?
Well, we're an older team, number one. We have more experience on our football team. But, for me, it's another SEC East opponent. I know that y'all have a hard time believing that, but it really is. We spend as much time at the office this week as we do in every single week that we have. And it's another great opportunity for our team on the road. And that's if you want to continue to move the program forward, you got to win tough road games, and this will be a tough road game.
You mentioned AJ as one of the top two backs. What has it kind of been like watching him go through this season where he's, been off the field for as long as he has, and he admitted it was kind of an emotional struggle at points?
I think any time that as a guy that really enjoys playing the game, and I would say A.J. Turner really enjoys playing the game, and I think you see his enjoyment not just at the running back position, but what he does for our football team on special teams. And then he has the issue, and that's taken away from you with concussion, and it's a frustrating time. As much as time as we put in as players through the all-season program and the lifting and all the commitment that you have to just have 12 opportunities that you can go out there and play, and you get some of those opportunities taken, it's very frustrating. People have no idea the amount of time these young men put in as far as the preparation is concerned, whether it's during the season and the lifting and the film work, or it's in the off season, or it's in summer program.
Will, forgive me for not remembering the stat, but Jake was talking about how you were talking to the team about being able to finish over 500 in the SEC. It's something that hasn't been done quite often in back-to-back years here. How important is that to you guys? I know you guys take it a 1 week at a mentality, but last conference game, how big would that be for you guys?
Well, it would be for the fourth time in school history, back-to-back consecutive winning seasons in the Southeastern Conference. I think it was done in 2000, 2001, and then the run from 2010 to 2013, and then obviously last year we were 5-3, and then it's just progress. You're making progress in the program. You're seeing progress, being able to have tangible results for your team and your fan base, and that's something that is important to our football team.
Well, I only asked you this because you had a front row seat for a couple years down there, but is it surprising to you, because you've been in the SEC for so long, that 10 years after Tebow, there's still so many questions at the Florida quarterback position?
I'm the head coach of South Carolina. Ask Dan. Next question.
Obviously, he's being forced into action.
I got to ask that question a lot, so I'm not going to answer it now. I hit my quota. Go ahead.
Obviously, he's being forced into action. But what kind of potential does R.J. Roderick have, and just sort of where is he in terms of development and kind of getting thrown in there?
I think he has a high ceiling. I really do. He was an option quarterback at Cane Bay High School. He played situationally on third down only as a man-to-man cover guy or a deep safety. So that's all he's ever really understood and known as far as a defensive back. So, every day you ever seen that movie 50 First Dates? There's a lot of firsts multiple times, okay? So, but it's not, I'm just saying he hasn't been exposed to these things because he doesn't know, and he hasn't been taught in terms of and taught as a defensive back and those sort of things. But he is extremely bright, and so he retains information extremely well. And he'll say, this is kind of what we did yesterday. So that's exactly what we did yesterday. And so he's able to transfer those things very well because he is so intelligent, if that makes sense. But he's hearing a lot of this stuff, and I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. He's hearing a lot of these things for the first time ever. And it's hard sometimes, especially when you get in season and you start game planning for an opponent, and something that we did last week for 4 days of practice and for the game, and we call it the same thing, but we're going to change it this week because they do something different route concept-wise, and it's not going to match what they do. So you're going to tell me we're going to change that, and we're going to call it the same thing because it's the same concept? Yes, that's hard. Based on your reaction, you probably think it's hard too.
How do you approach, and have you approached voting with your guys in terms of leading up to today and today? Do you say anything to them about it? Do y'all have any? You know today's election day?
I do now. I'm getting ready for Florida.
You mentioned Jonathan Gibson being a chance to play this week. Just can you go back on what you remember about his recruitment and what kind of player you saw at that level?
Really good football player at Mill Creek, which is one of the, Shannon Jarvis is their head football coach, one of the top programs in the state of Georgia. Very aggressive player, very productive player in the Gwinnett area, which is some of the best football there is in the country. He's played in that county. But just a very productive guy, instinctive guy, tough, physical. We had him in camp and liked his movement skills and his ability to retain information. And so, again, sometimes because of the numbers we had in the beginning, didn't necessarily fit well for him at the time, but he's continued to work at his skill set, and we'll see if he has an opportunity to play on Saturday.
Just to ask a question that some of your fans have been buzzing about since the weekend. I know Sunday night you didn't know about Josh Belt going to Clemson Saturday for their game. Have you followed up on that at all? Is that an issue with you at all, or just something you don't care about?
Josh and I had a conversation. We're fine. We're moving on.
With some of the attrition that you've kind of had at the running back spot, do you go into the week saying the two true freshmen?
Oh, we haven't had any attrition.
Well, with Rico questionable, with Tyson with the hand.
Tyson's going to play.
Fair enough. Is it so? Not much thought on those true freshmen potentially having a chance to play, or is
we prepare them, each week to have the opportunity to go in and play. We do a lot of good work against offense, defense, and a lot of times I don't necessarily want the running backs to be taking some of the hits that they take during the week in our thud tempos. So we have some of the younger backs take those reps. So we're always preparing those guys for an opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Coach, give me your connection to Florida. I remember Sunday night you said, Florida will always have a special place. Every time you guys will go to Gainesville, will there always be kind of like a bittersweet homecoming for you?
Well, I grew up in Gainesville, so I spent 10 years of my life there, and we had a wonderful time in Florida. Carol and Jackson and I were talking about it the other night after our game Saturday. So. Again, I got nothing but great memories at Florida. Obviously, if you don't win enough games, you're gonna get fired. That's part of our profession. There's no hard feelings. That's the way things go in that situation. I've got a great opportunity to be here at South Carolina. I'm glad I'm a Gamecock.
I asked a few players today about the post-game celebration with Brian McClendon and T-Rob dancing in the middle of that pile, and
I was dancing too.
Best Keyshawn Nixon said you're the best.
I didn't know all the words,
team.
But come on, man.
No, he said you're the best dancer on the team. And I was
That's
just
right.
wondering if you were ever going to put that on film for fans and us.
Absolutely not.
No. So that's a hard no on ever getting you in front of a camera to.
Absolutely not.
With kind of the way this Coach Grantham likes to blitz and the pressure that they can send, how much does that call on your running backs to sort of have sort of the head on a swivel and be really ready in pass protection with what they can kind of do?
Absolutely, and the Todd will give us some different looks that we haven't prepared for, and there's no question whether it's in the tight ends or it's the running backs and understanding what ID they have in the protection, and from a quarterback standpoint of knowing where we're protected, where we're not protected, from a route standpoint of understanding where we got to get rid of the football, when they bring the overload pressures. So it's not just at the running back, it's across the board. All 11 guys got to be on the same page.
How is your special teams depth at this point, considering the injuries you have had?
Well, you look at Javon was a core teams guy for us, so that hurts, obviously. So we're going Nick and JT have been guys that have been out. We're core team guys as well. So, we make the proper adjustments. We prepare and develop our guys, and some Nick guys need to step up for it. Israel stepped up for us. Josh Vance stepped up for us. Keel Pollard was on all 4 phases on Saturday, and plus about 40 snaps at tight end. Shamik's done a good job for us covering kicks, and will continue to do that. I'm just off the top of my head, guys, that Casey Crosby, now that he's got that full cast off, he's going to be able to do more for us on special teams. Tyson. So again, we got to have some guys step up. Yep. That's always a concern, when you get to this time.
Will, Steve Spurrier reached out to you this week about
I talked to
coming
Coach
back.
Spurrier last night, or no, Sunday night. So, no, he was great. He just congratulated on the win. Said he was able to watch every snap, and he liked the fact we scored 48 points. All right, thank you.